The sight of Bristol City's manager sweeping up a 10-year-old Ballboy in a dance of joy to celebrate their team's last-minute cup victory over mighty Manchester United last week, added a note of sweetness to a year of conflict and contradictions. Many sports lovers had found themselves spending too much time in 2017 worrying about the integrity of what they were being asked to applaud, the integrity of the competitor, the integrity of the competition. From state-sponsored doping to tax avoidance, from child abuse cover-ups to corruption in sports' most powerful governing bodies, so much dishonesty seemed to have seeped into the foundations that nothing felt entirely stable. Maybe sport, rather than providing an escape from daily cares, was just reflecting the corrosion of the world around it. Still, sport could sometimes make you forget not just its own problems but the wider ones, too. When Pep Guardiola's Manchester City unveiled a brand of football that seemed to set new standards of skill and beauty, when 6 wickets from Anya Shrubsily brought England a victory in the Women's Cricket World Cup final, or when Serena Williams won her 23rd Grand Slam singles title while 7 weeks pregnant with her first child, sport was doing its job. Good feelings also enveloped Chris Froome and Lewis Hamilton for a while, but the cheering for a 4th Tour de France victory for one and a 4th F1 World Championship for the other, each an unprecedented achievement for a Briton, turned sour as the details of the VAT avoidance scheme on Hamilton's private jet and the news of Froome's adverse analytical finding became public. However unfairly, Hamilton is not the only sports hero to minimize his taxes, and we await Froome's efforts to establish his innocence. The result was visible in their failure of either man to make it to the podium at the BBC's Sports Personality of the Year Awards. A year in which a serious readjustment of gender balance had been high on the list of sports priorities also ended with a dull clang on Spotty night. 4 women had been nominated in the 12-strong short list. When the voting was over, they could be seen to have finished 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. The cause was not so much an unwillingness to reward female sport. After all, 13 of Spotty's 62 winners have been women, and Jessica Enesil received a Lifetime Award, as this year's achievements being in the wrong sports on the wrong channels. In team sports, however, there was significant progress. England's triumph over India in the Women's World Cup final was watched by 24,000 fans at Lord's and a TV audience of more than 1 million. Their counterparts in rugby and football also reached their respective World Cup finals, the rugby team losing a high-scoring game to the All Blacks in Belfast and their footballers going down 3-0 to Holland, and then losing their manager, Mark Sampson, after allegations of racist behavior principally voiced by the team's discarded striker, Eni Aluko. That was by no means the FA's only major problem off the field. The revelations made to this paper by Andy Woodward of systematic abuse during his years as a youth player uncorked a flood of similar stories held back for years by fear and shame. The governing body suddenly looked like the Vatican, ill-equipped to confront the evidence of decades of criminal behavior. Now veils have been lifted, the duty of care towards young athletes, swimmers, gymnasts and others, as well as footballers, has never seemed so high on the agenda. For young male footballers representing England, however, this is a wonderful time to be alive. Names such as Ryan Brewster, Phil Foden, Ryan Sessegnon, Joe Worrell and Dominic Solanke forced their way into the public consciousness with victories in the Under-17 World Cup, the Toulon tournament for under-18s, the Under-19 European Championship and the Under-20 World Cup. An inevitable result of this almost hallucinatory series of wins, one of them even after a penalty shootout, will be the expectation that the transition to senior level can be handled with greater success than those of preceding generations. Gareth Southgate's current England squad, already benefiting from an infusion of youth, cruised through their qualifying rounds for the World Cup in Russia but finished the year with a pair of stuttering goalless draws at Wembley in friendlies against Germany and Brazil. In domestic football, Chelsea took the Premier League title, Arsenal the FA Cup and Manchester United the League Cup, and the Europa League, although some might think that the achievement of Nigel Clough in keeping Burton Albion, with a ground holding 6,900, in the Championship for a second season represented a greater feat than any achieved by Messrs Conte, Wenger, and Mourinho. England's Rugby Union 15 took their second successive Six Nations title under Eddie Jones's leadership, but a narrow defeat in Dublin in their last match deprived them of a repeat Grand Slam while serving notice. Joe Schmidt's Ireland, like Gregor Townsend's Scotland, are on an upward trajectory. Under Warren Gatland, the British and Irish Lions fought an epic series in New Zealand, coming back from 12-6 down to 15-15 in the deciding match to tie a series they had come close to winning for the first time since 1971. By contrast, brute reality took hold when England's cricketers, fresh from series wins at home against South Africa and West Indies, arrived in Australia for the Ashes. Old failings resurfaced in the performance of Joe Root's squad and familiar arguments were wearily revived to explain them. When the TV pundits attract more attention than the players, you're in trouble. For sheer crassness, the rumble between Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Conor McGregor in August was virtually unsurpassable. 4 months earlier at Wembley, however, a measure of stature had been restored to unarmed combat by a proper battle for the World Heavyweight Championship, in which the Watford-born Anthony Joshua dethroned Vladimir Klitschko, the veteran from Ukraine. Another great champion, Usain Bolt, also retired in defeat in London, beaten into third place over 100 meters in the World Championships behind the winner, Justin Gatlin, who would later be embroiled in yet another doping scandal. Bolt's hamstring injury in the final leg of the men's 4x100m relay added an extra layer of drama to the victory for Britain's quartet, Shindu Uya, Adam Jamili, Danny Talbot and Nathaniel Mitchell-Blake, who gave their team a second gold medal to add to Mo Farah's 10K win. But no one commanded more attention than a man who ended the year kicking his heels on the sidelines, Colin Kaepernick, who chose to kneel rather than stand for the US national anthem while still a player with the San Francisco 49ers. The quarterback then discovered that, by drawing the ire of his president for his support of the Black Lives Matter movement, he had forfeited his right to further employment in the NFL. In the end, when the applause had died down for the resumption of the battle between Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, for Barcelona's gobsmacking comeback against Paris Saint-Germain, 4-0 away, 6-1 at home, and for Marc Marquez's virtuosity on a MotoGP bike, the year was about one man.